Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education Special Education Virtual Webinar. My name is Tanya McMillan. I am an admissions coordinator here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. I also have my colleague from the Office of Admissions here with me today, and she will introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sion John, Assistant Director of Admissions here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Welcome, everyone.
We also have Assistant Professor Dr. Alexandra Shelton joining us today, as well as Chelsea Haslip, an alumnus of the Special Education Program. Before we begin, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We'll be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. Also, please take a moment right now to ensure that your microphone is on mute and your video camera is off. Please always have your microphone on mute and video off during today's presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your questions in the chat box and we will read and answer your questions. I would like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will start the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Shelton will go over the details of the special education programs, and Ms. Haslip will share her experience as a School of Education alumni. Lastly, we will cover admissions requirements, go over financial aid and scholarship, and finally leave the floor open for questions at the end. So to begin with just a few quick facts about the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. We are proud to share the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. Here on this slide, you'll also see some fast facts about our school. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,364 students and offer 27 graduate programs, which includes doctoral, master's, and graduate certificate programs. We also have a strong network of over 23,000 SOE alums. Here on this slide, we have our special education faculty, Dr. Rebecca Cruz, Dr. Tamara Martyr, and Dr. Alexandra Shelton. Presenting for us today, we have Dr. Shelton. And Dr. Shelton joined JHU in 2021. Her research focuses mainly on improving literacy outcomes for secondary students with mild disabilities, including mild intellectual disability and learning disabilities, by intensive intervention and teacher professional development and coaching. Dr. Shelton was previously a high school special education teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools, where she served students with and without disabilities in English, language arts, reading, math, and science. At this time, I will hand the floor over, to Dr. Shelton. Welcome, Dr. Shelton. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending. So there's a critical shortage of special education teachers in most of the United States. And because of the pandemic, we have an even greater need to have well-trained special educators. So it's really important that schools and school districts create ways to increase the number of people who are entering the teaching profession, especially for special education. And it's also important that we increase the diversity within special education. And so these are some of the areas that our program prioritizes. So we prioritize those needs by offering 3 pathways in the field of special education. This way, you can customize your master's degree to meet your professional goals. And so there is the mild to moderate disabilities pathway, there is severe disabilities with a focus on autism, and then severe disabilities with a focus on ABA, or applied behavioral analysis. So we offer our classes in a range of formats. We have summer classes, fall classes, and spring classes. Most of our classes that are in person all of our programs or classes that meet in person meet in the evening to accommodate the needs of people who work during the day, but we also have online classes as well. When we meet in person, our classes are held at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, which is in Laurel, Maryland. And so by taking these classes in person, as well as some courses online, most of the students in our program complete the program in 2 to 3 years. So in order to graduate, assuming that you are seeking certification, you would need to pass the praxis assessment in special education. There's also a praxis assessment in reading. Those two requirements are not necessary if you are not seeking certification, but most of the students in our program do seek certification. There's also a comprehensive exam that students complete essentially at the midpoint of their program. There's also a culmination project that candidates seeking state certification complete. And then there's an optional graduate project and presentation for those who are seeking certification. If you're not seeking certification, that graduate project becomes a requirement. So here's a bit of information about the special ed masters with a focus on autism. The purpose of the program and that particular pathway is to gain expertise in specialized instruction so that you're able to meet the educational needs of students with autism, and that covers K to 12. This pathway consists of 36 credits of coursework. There are 12 courses, 6 are in person, 6 are online, and there's 1 applied internship that's a part of this pathway. This is not a program for certification, so many of the students in the program pursuing this pathway already have certification. And this program can be completed in 2 years. Dr. Tamara Martyr leads this program, and so if you have any questions or would like more information, you can email her at tmartyr1@jhu.edu. Here is a sample of courses for the autism pathway: legal aspects, a class on autism spectrum disorders. There's a variety of courses, and you'll see the last course listed is the internship that's a part of this pathway. There's also a graduate certificate in autism, and this certificate does not necessarily have a focus on the education of students with autism. Instead, it's designed for people who are parents or educators or other support personnel, or just anyone who's interested in gaining more practical knowledge for supporting children and adults with autism. So again, there's not necessarily a focus on the educational needs of students with autism in this certificate program. So it's an 18 credit fully online program, and it addresses the wide range of competencies and skills that are needed to support students with autism and other pervasive developmental disorders. There are some classes that may focus on education, but not all of the classes, because this is a certificate program for a wide range of individuals. And Dr. Martyr leads this certificate program as well, so you can email her for more information. So the last pathway is the mild to moderate disabilities pathway or focus. And the purpose of this pathway is to gain expertise in specialized instruction to meet the educational needs of students with disabilities within a wide range of educational settings. So the pathway or the focus is called mild to moderate disabilities, but we do have students who are interested in supporting students with disabilities who have more extensive support needs and whose needs might not necessarily be considered mild or moderate. This is our one certification pathway for anyone interested in special education. So our program is approved by the Maryland State Department of Education for initial certification in generic special education. And so this means that the program or the pathway prepares students to get their certificate or their certification in elementary middle or in secondary adult. So elementary middle is for those interested in teaching and serving students with disabilities in grades 1 through 8. And the secondary adult track is for individuals who are interested in teaching and serving students in grades 6 through 12. So those middle grades are in both tracks, but typically if you're interested in elementary, you would go the elementary middle track. And if you're interested in high school or older students, you would go the secondary adult track. We have a range of courses in this pathway, methods courses such as math, spoken and written language, transition, behavior management. And so no matter which pathway or which track you choose, whether that's elementary, middle, or secondary adult, there are 39 credits of coursework. This includes 13 courses and 2 internships, and the program can be completed in 2 years. If you want your master's, but not necessarily a certification, you would take these same courses, except you would only need to take 1 internship. But again, the majority of our students seek certification and take both internships. So here is the sample of courses for the mild to moderate disabilities pathway. There's applied behavioral programming, and there's a classroom management course, meaning we really support students or our students in supporting classroom and behavior management. There's a literacy course, math, educational assessment, and there are slight differences for students who are pursuing the secondary adult track. And there might be a slide that shows that. Okay, so yeah, so just to talk about that previous slide, there's a class called Spoken and Written Language. That is a class for students on the elementary middle track. Students on the secondary adult track would not take that course. They would instead take another one. So there are certain courses that are tailored to the specific track that students pursue. So we have a partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools called Special Education Teacher Immersion Training, or SEDIT. This partnership is for MCPS paraeducators and other employees, primarily school-based employees in MCPS. It's a 2-year program that individuals can enroll in order to earn their master's in special education on the MMD pathway and with certification. So we use a cohort approach, meaning that all SEDIT candidates complete their courses together, depending on if they're elementary middle track or secondary adult track. Again, this can result in certification. And one of the benefits of this program is that we work with Montgomery County Public Schools to make sure that you can complete your 2 internships at your school of employment. So it's called a job embedded internship. And so you would complete 2 job embedded internships. You still have your salary and access to your benefits as an MCPS employee, and there is partial tuition support. I lead this program, so if you have more questions or want more information about this program, you can email me at ashelt18@jhu.edu. The one more thing that I want to mention about this program is that it's specifically for employees of MCPS and not necessarily substitute teachers or even long-term substitute teachers in MCPS.
Unfortunately, our student speaker, she was not able to attend today's webinar. So we're
I think she's on.
Oh, she's on. Oh, I do see her name.
Hi, sorry. I had some logging in issues. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. We're just glad you're here.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea. I completed the master's program with Johns Hopkins in the fall of last year and participated in the graduation ceremony in person, which was super exciting this spring. I currently work at a non-public school in Montgomery County, the Ivy Mount School, and was able to work full-time while completing my master's with Johns Hopkins. While at Johns Hopkins, everything that I was completing in the master's program was immediately applicable to what I was doing in my everyday job, which was super beneficial. And what I really appreciated in the education that I got from Johns Hopkins was that a lot of what I learned was the why behind a lot of the things that I'm doing. I think a lot of times there are parts of the job where you're wondering like, well, how come we're doing this? Or what's the importance of this? And that's not always clearly explained. And I really appreciated Johns Hopkins' ability to explain that why, which really helped me provide better products for the students that I was working with and ultimately help them more, which was great. A lot of the educational materials that I received in my coursework, I continue to use with my current student caseload that I have. Some of the lesson plans that I develop, I received great outlines in previous classes. I also got some books which helped me with making more individualized educational plans for some of my students. There was also coursework in how to write specific IEP goals and objectives to really highlight the strengths of the students while working on some of those skill deficits we really want to improve with the students that we work with. It was also really nice because of the group of students that I was working with. They were all from different backgrounds. So like I said, I'm from the non-public school in a more intensive program as far as staffing goes with student to staff ratio. And some of the other students that I were that in the program I was communicating with and completing projects with for our master's programs, they were from different backgrounds as far as working at public schools or working with more inclusive classroom settings, general education populations. So it was really nice to hear those differing perspectives. And also just to have people who are in this field and kind of also like-minded to collaborate with and to share experiences and stories with, which is really nice. One thing I also really appreciated while completing my master's was that when I had originally started, it was supposed to be in person, and then the pandemic happened, and then we had to switch to virtual. And I really feel like my education was not impacted negatively at all by what was going on. Yes, it would have been nice to have been in person, but I really appreciated the faculty's ability to continue to provide high quality education and be available and understanding considering all of those difficulties going on. I will say that the program is not easy. It is a challenge, but it is one that I think for me really helped me grow and become a much better educator, and ultimately has helped me really with helping my students become the best versions of themselves that they can be and really improve their quality of life, which is something I'm very passionate about. So I did have to study a lot during the week. When I wasn't in class, I was dedicating at least an hour to studying just to stay on top of it. If I wasn't able to do that during the week for whatever circumstances, such as like having other work activities that were more pressing, such as IEPs needing to be written, I did save that for the weekends. And I did do some more of the supplemental reading while I was in a lot of my courses. So there's like your mandatory reading that you have, but a lot of the instructors also provide additional reading material that you can access, or different activities you can access to just gain more insight into what you were doing, which I found beneficial, but that also contributed to some of my study time. But I will say that although challenging, it was very rewarding. And like I said, because it is a field that I am currently participating in as a special educator, it was always work that I found was meaningful and immediately applicable in what I was doing. So yeah, if anybody has any additional questions that they would like of me regarding my personal experience while I was there, I'm more than happy to answer any additional questions at the end. And again, sorry for my late arrival.
So thanks for that. That was really helpful, Chelsea. So the ideal candidate in the MMD focus is someone who's seeking initial special education certification through a state-approved program. That is what our MMD focus has, although again, not everyone seeks certification, but most do. For the autism focus, we are seeking individuals who are planning to acquire skills to support students with autism and severe disabilities in grades K through 12, typically already certified in special education. Regardless of the focus, the ideal candidate is able to commit at least 2 years of intensive graduate coursework, or 2 years, at least able to commit 2 years of intensive graduate coursework, and is able to demonstrate admissions requirements and is willing to work and study hard, like Chelsea shared.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shelton. So now we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. First, a 3.0 or better cumulative undergraduate grade point average. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on the school's website, and the application fee is $80. Official transcripts from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. Again, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. An essay and a current resume, 2 letters of recommendation from individuals who can speak to your work in the field of special education. And for the mild to moderate program, testing scores are required if your GPA is less than a 3.0. Please visit the Maryland Department of Education website for a listing of tests that are accepted. Lastly, an interview. Applicants who meet admission requirements will be asked to interview to ensure that their goals align with the program's goals before an offer of admission. And for international students, you must submit a passing IELTS score, TOEFL score, or TOEFL waiver request form. And if your degree was completed outside of the US, please keep in mind that you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on the school's website. And the tuition for the 2022-2023 academic school year is for face-to-face, $918 per credit. For online courses, $972 per credit, plus a $20 per credit technology fee. In addition, the registration fee is $175 per semester, and there's an $80 application fee when you submit your application. For additional information on tuition and fees, please visit the SOE website. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. And we do offer a limited number of partial need-based institutional scholarships each year. And these awards range on average from $500 to $1,500 per semester, and are applied to tuition expenses beginning in the fall semester. And please keep in mind, to apply for the SOE Endowed Scholarship, students must complete the FAFSA form. To learn if you qualify for the Endowed Scholarship or have any questions regarding financial aid, please visit the school's website. All right, so at this time, we would like to open up the floor for questions. It looks like we have one question in the chat box, and the question is a two-part question. The first one is, what are the requirements for internships? Also, what if you are already working as a teacher in an inclusive school? Would you have to intern somewhere else?
So for an internship, students are required to work with students with disabilities or teach students with disabilities in the typical setting for those students. And so the most important thing to keep in mind is that if you are on the elementary middle track, that means that the students you are working with are in grades 1 through 8. And if you're on the secondary adult track, then the students that you are working with are in grades 6 through 12. Each internship requires you to work directly with students with disabilities for a minimum of 150 hours. But students without disabilities can also be in that classroom setting if you are working in an inclusive classroom setting. So to answer the second question, it is okay to work as a teacher in an inclusive school with students with and without disabilities, as long as students with disabilities are present. So you wouldn't be able to count any hours where only students without disabilities are there. And I hope that answers the first question or the first set of questions. But if you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Another question is, are the certifications also open to international students?
So our program prepares students to become certified in Maryland. So all of our students in the MMD program are completing their internships in Maryland. Once they graduate with their master's, they will then submit paperwork to the Maryland State Department of Education to get their certification. So if you're an international student and you're planning to attend the program in Maryland and work in schools and complete your internship in Maryland, then it's not a problem as long as you meet the admissions requirements for the program in the first place.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shelton, again. The next question we have is for the both Masters in Special Education program, are the programs offered online?
So the MMD focus and the autism focus. The MMD focus or program is essentially a hybrid program where some classes are in person and other classes are online. And I know less about the MMD or less about the master's program with an autism focus, but I believe that it's the same, where some classes are in person and other classes are online. The only program that is fully online is the certificate program for the autism certificate program.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. And let's see, next question we have is, would the students you are working with have to have an assessment, or can they be students with mild to moderate learning difficulties without an official diagnosis from an educational psychologist?
So if you are in a public school where students with disabilities have individualized education programs, then your internships would need to be in classes with students with IEPs, with individualized education programs. We have some students who work in private schools or non-public schools. I'm going to say private schools. They work in private schools that don't necessarily have individualized education programs, but they do have some kind of plan for students who have disabilities. So I would probably need to know more about your specific context. So I'm not sure if you wrote my email address down, but I'll add my email address to the chat so that you can email if you'd like to ask additional questions.
Okay, the next question we have is, does the MS Special Education Severe Disabilities Applied Behavior Analysis Program lead to initial state teacher certification?
It does not. So the only program or pathway or focus that leads to initial state certification is the MMD pathway, the mild to moderate disabilities pathway. However, we have several students who work with students with autism, students with severe disabilities, or students who have more extensive support needs. Our program is tailored to a wide variety of settings and for students to work, or for our students to work with students with disabilities with a wide range of needs. It's just that technically the name of the program or the name of the pathway is mild to moderate disabilities. But that pathway is the only program that leads to initial certification in special education.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Another question in regards to the MS Special Education Severe Disabilities Applied Behavior Analysis Program. Will I be a board certified behavior analyst, when I complete the program?
So I know less about this program, but I do believe that that is the point or the purpose of the program. So I can really only speak to the MMD pathway. Students complete their master's and then they have to submit paperwork to be eligible for certification. And so I'm assuming that it would be the same thing. You complete the master's and then you submit paperwork or complete an exam outside of the program that would lead to becoming an ABA. So I'm going to add Dr. Marder's email address to the chat because she would be able to answer that question for you, but I believe the answer is yes.
All right, so it looks like there are no more questions. Here on this slide, here are some important contact information. For any admissions related questions, please reach out to Ms. Tanya McMillan. Here's her email address, phone number. Program related questions, Camila Mika Sims. She is the program coordinator, but I know Dr. Shelton also shared her email address and Dr. Marder's email address as well. Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Thank you, Chelsea, for being here and for the wonderful presentation. Thank you again for everyone for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful evening.